I was having an interesting conversation with my wife yesterday. I was talking about a heretical rosary prayer process, inspired very much by Simon Dyda's Ars Rosaria, published through Hadean Press. It's one of their small guides to the underworld pamphlets, and if you haven't checked it out yet, you can find the Kindle edition on Amazon. I'll leave the links down below, or actually pick up the pamphlet through Hadean Press. Now, Simon Dyda's process involves calling upon various demons, and while that's not necessarily my purpose, I did like the idea of taking the rosary, which is such a powerful spiritual tool, and making it work for my particular spirituality. I'm sure I'll share the whole thing with you when it's completely ready, but for now it's just a personal process. But it did engender some kind of conversation with my wife on the nature of spiritual evocation or invocation, and the two main attitudes that you can see historically throughout the grimoires and going right back to the PGM. Now, as some of you may know, I recently took Jack Grail's excellent Hail Hecate course, but also his course on the PGM called 50 Rites for 50 Nights. And in that course, he explains the technologies that were used by the sorcerers of late antiquity to compel spirits to answer their call. Now, there's no doubt that the sensitivities of the general magical practicing population have changed radically over the past probably 100 years. And the idea of forcing a spirit against their will is now something that many magic practitioners are just not comfortable doing. But we can't ignore the fact that this was simply the way it was previously done, at least according to records. Is it possible that somewhere someone was working with spirits without using this compulsive language, this forcing attitude? Yes, of course it's possible, but the majority of the documentation out there outlines how to conjure a spirit in very forceful language. In the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is one of the most famous grimoires, there's the Ars Coetia, which recommends that you put the name of the demon into a box and then drop the box into fire and then threaten the demon until it does what you tell it to, and then you quench the fire and then you give it all kinds of lovely things to smell. And then when we look at the spells from the PGM, the Greco-Egyptian magical papyri, which contains spells from 2nd century BCE all the way to around the 4th century CE, we can see not only similar attitudes, but also similar language. I compel thee to come to me quickly. Yes, this comes up a lot in the PGM and also in the Solomonic grimoires. But this method of saying the name of the spirit that you're calling and then saying everything that you know about that spirit, the various names that are used for that spirit, the preferences of that spirit, the various exploits and failures and successes and places of worship and so on associated with that spirit, to let the spirit know, I know who you are, pay attention to me. So this is done as a first part to any invocation or any call to a spirit. And then this second part, which is, now that you know that I know so much about you, let me also tell you, I know who your children are, and I will make them suffer if you don't do this for me. This kind of really nasty stuff, right? Or I will say your name as a palindrome so that you will be forever trapped going backwards and forwards, because they believed that the spirits and also the sound of their names and also the writing of their names was all kind of intermingled. And I'm guessing that this is probably where we get Abracadabra from, right? As a deterioration of a palindrome of Abrasax, right? So Abrasax being one of the entities who is very often called upon in the magical papyri. Now, actually, it's quite reasonable for the people at the time to believe that such compulsive language, such violent words would be necessary to force the entities to do their will. Of course, at the time, it was actually believed that attracting the favor of the gods was almost as dangerous as attracting their anger. The best way to live was to live away from their gaze and to be as invisible to them as possible. So if this is how they believed that the gods related to their lives, that the gods were dangerous, fickle entities toying with humankind for their pleasure and amusement, then it stands to reason that any approach of these gods would be done with great care, in the same way as you'd approach a tiger, which cannot be tamed. Most people with any sense would just not do it. But if you were one of these people who did do it, you'd do it in a way where the tiger or the entity in question understands that if they try anything untoward, then they're not going to enjoy the consequences. Now, the attitude of the average human being towards the idea of gods and entities has changed radically since Christianity, let's be honest. Christianity in general, but probably a specific brand of Protestant Christianity in the modern world, has really spread the idea that God is generally on our side and wishes the best for us. And that attitude has spread throughout Western civilization and has permeated all the other polytheistic religions that aren't so maybe ubiquitously represented religions. Now, whatever the reasons for this change in levels of empathy for the entities that we're talking to, I think it's probably fair to say that most people would not feel comfortable threatening an entity that they were hoping to have a relationship with. I actually really like Jake Stratton-Kent's take on the question. I remember hearing him say in an interview, it was probably a Glitched Bottle interview, where he was saying that in order to approach a demon, you didn't have to thwart it with angels, you had to be a geezer. And for those of you outside of the UK, a geezer is British slang for a streetwise guy, someone who's not afraid to get into a fist fight. Maybe from a more practical perspective, he also suggested that rather than threatening them with swords, if you're going to be approaching one that's particularly scary, it's best to approach it with just simply another spirit who can look after you if things get nasty. And of course, with the spread of information from the internet, we also have access to many more entities, and therefore people can work with entities that they feel more comfortable to work with and less frightened by, probably, and therefore the need for compulsion suddenly disappears. Maybe you don't need to bind and force the Great Duke of Hell Astaroth to bring you a Boss RC505 looping machine when you can create a friendly servitor to do the job just as well. Now, the rosary process that I'm currently putting together involves calling to the Mother Goddess, the Divine Feminine, the aspect of divinity that is to do with multiplicity and with matter. No Latin pun intended, although maybe it's entirely intended. I'm not sure. We'd have to check. And no, I have no intention nor inclination to threaten the Mother Goddess. But there is one compulsive technology that Jack Grail points to in his courses that I am interested in using, and that is the part where you call to the entity using everything that you know about that entity. And I've actually selected 10 names of goddesses, all very different from each other, who are nevertheless representative of various aspects of the Divine Feminine. And with every new name that I mention also a couple of things that the Divine Feminine has been known to do under that particular name. And having 10 different incarnations involved here really helps to define at least a little bit more completely the totality of the Divine Feminine that I'm in fact calling to. And actually I think that this is precisely why we burn certain incenses for certain entities. We're saying to the entity, I know what you like. And why we dress in certain colours for certain entities. Again, you're pointing out a familiarity so that the entity then goes, okay, they know my name, but well, that's not all they know about me. Goodness, they know quite a lot about me. Okay, I'm paying attention. And once again, once that first initial contact is made, then that familiarity starts to become a bit more natural, a bit less forced, and a working relationship can be established. There we are, folks. I hope that was of interest to some of you. Let me know down in the comments what your attitude is towards forcing entities to do your will through threats of violence versus through tentative, amicable approaches. It's very unlikely that you're going to agree with all the comments you're going to find down there unless you're the first to comment. So do please remember to, as always, be kind and courteous to each other. And yeah, if you see someone who's written something particularly egregious, just ignore it. And amazingly, Foolish Fish viewers tend to really get that message, and I really always deeply appreciate it. Now, I'd really like to thank all of the members, whether you're a member through YouTube memberships or through Patreon. Your support is really the only way that I can continue making these videos, and I appreciate it so, so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Memberships start at $2 a month, which gives you access to the Foolish Fish Discord server. At $5 a month, you also get access to the Pathworking videos, as well as to a monthly Black Letter Press discount code. And those of you subscribing for $10 or more a month get mentioned on my daily planetary ritual to receive whatever planetary blessings you choose. That's all of them if you wish for them. And you'll also see your name scrolling up over here on the left-hand side at the end of my Saturday videos. All members receive these Saturday videos 1 week in advance, and starting from last video actually, members get the video with no memes, no music, nothing added, just me talking directly to you with no interruptions and no distractions. Those versions of my videos remain available to view in the future. They remain advertisement free. So for the few of you who really do struggle with watching my videos because of all the memes and so on, then that possibly could be an option for you. I want to say a very particular thank you to David Venturini, Caitlin Kopok, Aritz Murueta Ramos, Danny Barr, Eamon, Linda Hendricks, Stephen Hunter, and Susanna Red Elves. Thank you so much for your support. It really means the world to me and to my family. And thank you to you, every single one of you viewers who have taken the time to watch the video and to click on the like button if you did in fact enjoy the video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already and click on that little bell button. And finally, don't forget that if you'd like to have a one-to-one video conversation with me, the links are down below for that as well. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye-bye.